Namaskar, welcome to literary platform Sahityapath. You are watching KHAMOSH Bhookh. In the previous episode, we saw how two monstrous men appeared before Buddhiya as she sat by the roadside playing her dhol. In tough times, no matter howsoever good thoughts guide your decisions, things often go wrong. This was exactly what was happening with Buddhiya. She was simply busy minding her own business, not bothering anyone. But since her bad days were upon her, everything she did seemed to end in misfortune. How could she stop the hungry eyes of the world, always lurking somewhere, preying on the weak? One of the men standing before her extended his hand, offering some money, and said, "We are going to Kolkata. Will you come with us? We will take you around, treat you to the best food. And you know, the rasgullas in Calcutta are huge. Come along." The moment Buddhiya heard this word, she grabbed her dhol and stood up. She retorted, "Go feed your sister those big Kolkata rasgullas." Saying this, she hurled the sack in her hand at his face and quickly started walking towards her home. Saying her leave, the two men began following her. As Buddhiya quickened her pace, so did they. The moment they found a deserted spot, one of them lunged forward and grabbed her hand. But Buddhiya managed to jerk it away and ran with all her might. She was sprinting towards her home when suddenly one of the men appeared in front of her. She changed direction, but they continued chasing her aggressively. Their goal was to catch her before she reached a crowded area. Carrying the dhol made it even harder for Buddhiya to run. One of the men reached out to grab her, but instead caught hold of the dhol. Unable to catch her, he took out his frustration on the dhol, smashing it against a rock with all his strength. The dhol shattered into pieces, wood, leather, and ropes all scattering, as if they were the remains of a lifeless body merging with the earth. Buddhiya turned for a moment and saw the remains of the dhol, her father's last possession. The sight made her scream in agony. In a flash, the entire story of the dhol replayed in her mind like a fast-forwarded film. Sensing the danger, Buddhiya knew her only choice was to run. With the dhol gone, she felt lighter and picked up speed. But the predators behind her were just as fast and continued chasing her. Then, in the distance, she saw a figure approaching. To her, it felt like drowning person clinging to a straw for survival. She kept running faster and faster. As she got closer, the figure seemed familiar. It looked like Babuji. In times of distress, even a momentary acquaintance can feel like a godsend. When Buddhiya finally recognized him clearly, she didn't think twice. She ran straight into his arms and clung to him with all her strength. She wanted to disappear into a place where these monsters could never find her. Babuji was startled, not knowing what was happening. But when he saw the two monstrous men approaching, he understood the situation. Until now, he had been like a tree offering shade to a weary traveler in the scorching sun. But as soon as he saw those men coming closer, he placed a firm hand on Buddhiya's back, as if giving her the shelter she desperately needed. Buddhiya trembled like a fish pulled out of water, her heart pounding violently against Babuji's chest. He tried to ask her something, but her voice was completely choked. Seeing Babuji standing before them, the two men hesitated and then slowly backed away. Why? Couldn't they have fought Babuji? They could have, but truth is truth, and falsehood is always false. No matter how powerful evil may seem, it always retreats in the presence of truth. Once Buddhiya's breathing steadied a little, Babuji gently pulled her away and tried to ask what had happened. But instead of speaking, Buddhiya took his hand and led him to the broken dhol. And then she broke down into loud, heart-wrenching sobs. She carefully picked up every piece of the shattered dhol, wrapping them in her clothing as if she was gathering treasure left behind by her ancestors. Ancestral possessions, whether of great value or none at all, often weigh a person down. Sometimes holding on to them hinders progress, while at other times they lead to growth. But rarely does one have the freedom to make their own choices regarding them. The burden of carrying them is ever present, and efforts to preserve them are constantly scrutinized, often leading to sorrow. Buddhiya lacked the wisdom or the capacity to analyze these things at that moment. She was carefully picking up every shattered piece of the dhol as if she was gathering the sacred remains of her ancestors. As she picked up each fragment, fresh tears flowed freely, cascading like milky waterfall. She kept thinking, "Oh, that dhol, the one that fed a family for 3 generations. Oh, that dhol, on whose beats warriors roared in wrestling matches, winning glory and victory. Oh, that dhol that echoed the legendary tales of Allah and Udal, stirring the hearts of countless audiences. Oh, that dhol on which my father once displayed his amazing feats. Oh, that dhol that resonated with hymns of Lord Ram and Krishna, moving people to tears. Oh, that dhol that played in the royal courts, narrating tales of brave warriors. Oh, that dhol on whose sweet rhythm Sukhiya once sang ghazals and film songs, earning a livelihood. Oh, that dhol that was a symbol of our family's honor and pride. Oh, that dhol that has been feeding me for the past several days, and now it is no more. Today, the dignity of my grandfather's family has been shattered. Who will ever be able to restore it now?" With these thoughts, Buddhiya collapsed, burying her head between her knees and wept uncontrollably. Babuji stood there, gazing at Buddhiya without blinking. He was astonished by the deep affection she had for a mere musical instrument. A dhol made of wood and leather. Was such love even possible? When he placed a comforting hand on her head, Buddhiya looked up into his eyes. At that moment, she broke into a wailing cry, just as she used to when looking into Sukhiya's eyes while complaining about something. Babuji gently held her by the shoulders and helped her to her feet. Buddhiya, still clutching the broken dhol pieces wrapped in her tunic, stood up. As she rose, a piece slipped from her grasp, but she quickly bent down, picked it up with reverence, and carefully placed it back into her bundle. The two of them walked towards the hut, Babuji leading, Buddhiya following. When they reached, Babuji made her sit on the khatiya before stepping out again. Once inside, Buddhiya took the dhol's remains from her clothing and carefully stored them in the iron box. She then stood absent-mindedly near the khatiya, waiting for Babuji to return. She had not expected him to come back. He had never said he would. So why was he returning? Was it Buddhiya's charm that drew him back? Had some affection for her arisen in his heart? Was it the trust in her eyes that compelled him to return? Or was it simply his instinct to help a poor, helpless girl? There was no immediate answer to these questions. However, their gestures and expressions did not suggest any romantic attachment. But one thing was clear, they had begun to trust each other. Buddhiya did not feel that Babuji was deceiving her in any way, nor did Babuji suspect Buddhiya of putting on an innocent act to trick him. This time, Babuji had come straight to Buddhiya's home in his vehicle. He had been looking for her when she suddenly appeared before him, breathless and distraught. After settling her inside, he opened the trunk of his car and pulled out some items. Among them was a modern dhol, along with a beautiful Punjabi suit and cosmetic accessories for Buddhiya. Today was not the day of Buddhiya to play music, nor for Babuji to sing along. But she was safe now, surrounded by the people of the Basti. Babuji had once again ensured she had enough for the next few days. To Buddhiya, Babuji seemed like a devotee of her art, and in many ways, he truly was.